It started with a knock. Not rushed, not hesitant. Just 3 soft, deliberate taps. I wasn't expecting anyone, especially not in the middle of a rainy Thursday, the kind of rain that turns the whole neighborhood into a hush. I opened the door without a word. She stood there, umbrella dripping, a cardboard box balanced on her hip, and a mug in her free hand. Her hair clung to her face in dark strands, and her voice cut through the quiet like something between a joke and a confession. "Your house is so quiet. Like you," she said, eyes squinting, not quite smiling. I looked at her for a moment. I'd seen her earlier that day unloading a moving van. Alone, no one helped. I hadn't said a word then, just watched from the porch with a book in my lap and coffee cooling beside me. "Want noise?" I asked, stepping aside. She blinked. I saw something flicker in her then, surprise, maybe, relief, or just exhaustion masked as courage. She stepped inside without further ceremony, left the box by the door, and cradled the mug like it mattered more than it should. We didn't talk much. I offered her a towel, she used it to dry her hands, then her face, then held it to her chest like a shield. I poured tea, chamomile, the quiet kind, and she took it like someone who hadn't been offered anything gentle in a long time. She told me her name was Madison. She'd just moved in next door. She didn't explain why. I didn't ask. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was acknowledged, like a room neither of us wanted to redecorate too soon. "I didn't think anyone lived here," she said after a while, tracing the rim of her mug with her finger. "The curtains never move. The lights are always soft, no sound." "I live here," I said. She nodded like that confirmed something she already suspected, then looked around as if absorbing the stillness. "Are you always this peaceful?" "I don't like to raise my voice if I don't have to." She exhaled, not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh, then stared at the window where the rain left long, steady lines across the glass. "Everything I left behind was loud," she said. Loud arguments, loud doubts, even the silence there screamed. I didn't answer. Some truths don't need responses. I just refilled her cup. Eventually, she stood, said she should go. She looked smaller with the box in her arms again, less guarded, maybe, or just tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. Before she stepped out, she turned. "Thanks for the tea and the quiet." I nodded. "Anytime." She left. The door closed, but something stayed behind. An echo, maybe. Or the first thread of something that hadn't existed yesterday. And in the silence that followed, I didn't feel alone. Not exactly. The next time I saw her, it was morning. The sun had just broken through the grey of yesterday's rain, and she was struggling with another box on her porch. Her keys dangled from her mouth, a strip of tape stuck to her wrist. I was watering the plants. I almost didn't say anything. But she looked over, caught my eye, and mouthed, "Help!" I walked over without a word, took the box from her arms. It wasn't heavy, just awkward, like it didn't belong to her yet. Inside were photo frames, none visible, just corners wrapped in sweaters and old newspaper. "Living room?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, brushing hair from her face. "Or whatever room it turns out to be." The place smelled new and not new, like fresh paint over memories that refused to be covered. I set the box down gently, careful not to disturb whatever past was tucked inside. She sat cross-legged beside it, pulling out items one by one, like excavating someone else's life. "I used to believe if I wrapped things well enough, they wouldn't break," she said, unrolling a glass bird figurine. "Turns out people don't work that way." I sat nearby, not close, just within reach if she needed presence. "He used to hate silence," she said after a long pause. "Turned on the TV the moment he came home, music in the shower, podcasts in the car, said quiet made him feel hunted." I didn't say anything. I knew the type. People who fear their own thoughts if they echo too loud. I didn't mind the noise. Until it became a way to not hear me. She placed the bird on a shelf, adjusted it slightly, then let her hand linger there, like waiting to see if it would fly away or fall. "You like building things?" she asked suddenly, glancing at a half-assembled bookshelf in the corner. "I like fixing what doesn't stay upright." That made her smile. Faint but real. She handed me the instruction manual and a bag of screws. We spent the next hour putting the shelf together. There was something strangely intimate about aligning wood panels and fitting pegs into the right holes. A quiet rhythm formed. She read the steps. I followed. Halfway through, she stopped and said, "I didn't think you'd actually come." "You asked." "People ask things all the time. Doesn't mean they expect answers." I looked at her. She wasn't fishing for reassurance, just stating facts, the kind that hide years behind a single sentence. "You don't have to wait for silence to be heard," I said. She blinked, like the idea was foreign. When we finished the shelf, she placed the bird on the top, beside a worn paperback and a candle with no wick. I stood to leave, wiping my hands on my jeans. "Same tea as before?" I asked. "Chamomile," she said, nodding. "Quiet kind." I made it that evening. Left a thermos on her doorstep with a note. "No need to knock. Just come in next time." She didn't reply. But the next morning, the thermos was gone. The third time didn't feel like a coincidence. It was nearing dusk when she knocked again. Not like the first time. No hesitance, no soaked umbrella between us. Just her, in a hoodie that swallowed her shoulders, holding a DVD case and a bag of popcorn. "I haven't had a quiet movie night in years," she said. "Thought maybe, if you weren't busy." I wasn't. But even if I had been, I wouldn't have said so. She walked in like someone testing the temperature of a room with each step. Not afraid, just cautious. She didn't hand me the DVD, just set it on the coffee table and dropped the popcorn beside it. I let her choose the film, an old black and white piece that moved slowly, on purpose, like it had nowhere to be. We didn't talk much while it played. She curled up on one end of the couch, legs tucked underneath her, and I stayed on the other. The kind of distance that wasn't rejection, just respect. The room filled with the low hum of dialogue and orchestral background. At some point, the popcorn bag lay forgotten between us. Halfway through, I noticed her eyes weren't on the screen anymore. She was watching the patterns the light made on the wall. Not distracted, just somewhere else. "Is this okay?" she asked quietly. "Being here, like this?" I didn't answer right away. Words felt clumsy when silence said more. "Yes," I said. "It's more than okay." She nodded, like she believed me, but also like she wasn't used to answers that didn't come with conditions. Later, when the credits rolled, neither of us moved. The kind of stillness that didn't ask for anything. I offered her a refill of tea. She accepted. We sat again, each with a cup in hand, steam rising between us like a shared breath. She broke the silence once more, softer this time. "I used to be afraid of quiet, thought it meant something was wrong. And now, I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel empty here." The light dimmed outside. The day slipped into evening with no fanfare. I didn't tell her to stay. She didn't ask permission. When she stood to leave, it was with a kind of reluctance I didn't need to interpret. At the door, she looked back once. "You don't make me feel like I have to perform," she said. "That's rare." I just nodded. After she left, I found the DVD still on the table. She hadn't taken it. Or maybe she meant to leave it. A placeholder, an excuse to return. Either way, I didn't move it. Let it sit there like a bookmark in whatever this was becoming. She hesitated at the gate. It was Saturday morning, and I was trimming the hedges when I saw her standing there, keys in hand, dressed with purpose, but not moving. There was a list clutched in her fingers, folded and refolded, until the crease looked permanent. I didn't call out. I waited. She glanced over, eyes catching mine like she'd been rehearsing a line but lost it midway. "I was going to the store," she said, "but I've circled the block twice." I put the shears down. "Need company?" She didn't answer right away. Her fingers worked at the edge of the paper, tugging at the frayed corner like it might give her permission. I don't want to walk in there and see someone who remembers me from before. I don't want to be the woman who came back alone." "You won't be." She blinked again, slower this time, like she was letting the words settle. The drive was quiet, but not stiff. She kept the list on her lap, glanced out the window more than she looked at me. Her breathing was shallow, but I didn't press. In the store, she walked close, not clinging, just anchored. She picked items with care, hesitating at brands, reaching out then pulling back, like every choice held weight. I pushed the cart. She added things silently, nodding when I asked about tea or bread, or if she liked apples. Near the checkout, she froze. Her hand hovered over a jar of jam. Her eyes locked onto something or someone behind me. I didn't turn. You want that? I asked, nodding at the jar. She looked at me, not the person behind her. Her throat moved with a quiet swallow. Yes, she said. I placed it in the cart. We paid. We left. Only when we were back in the car did she speak. It was his sister, she said. She looked right through me. Maybe she didn't recognize you. She did. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, just honest. When we pulled up to her house, she didn't get out immediately. She sat there, holding the bag of groceries like something fragile. I didn't know how much I needed someone to just be there, she said. You don't have to need permission to be seen. She turned to me then, eyes glassy but dry. I used to measure love by how much I had to prove I was worth staying for. And now? I'm not sure yet, but today didn't feel like a test. She stepped out with the groceries. I watched her walk up the path, back straight, pace steady. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. That evening she knocked again, just once. She didn't bring a movie or popcorn, just herself and a jar of jam. For the toast, she said. I let her in. No questions, just quiet. The kind that didn't erase the past, but didn't let it own the present either. We met again in a place she hadn't planned for, by the bakery on Main Street. On a Thursday she almost stayed home. She was holding a paper bag, and her fingers trembled just enough for me to notice. The kind of tremble that doesn't come from cold. Her voice was thinner than usual. I thought I could handle it. I didn't ask what it was. I just stepped closer, not touching, just letting my presence be something she could lean into if she needed. I saw a friend, she said. Not really a friend. Someone who knew me before. Before. That word again. It hung between us like smoke. She didn't say anything cruel, she added, but she looked at me like I was a story she'd already heard too many times. Like I was just a rerun. I nodded slowly. What did you want her to see? That I'm trying, she said. That I'm more than what fell apart. You are. Her eyes searched mine, like she needed to believe it wasn't just kindness. People remember the collapse, she whispered, not the rebuilding. And I'm still in the dust, still figuring out what's solid. We stood in silence then, the street noise dull around us. I took the bag gently from her hands, scones, still warm, and nodded toward the bench nearby. She followed. She didn't eat, neither did I, but she watched the crumbs gather in the fold of the paper like they were pieces of something lost. I feel like if I slip up once, everyone will say they were right, she said, that I was too much, or not enough. Depends on the day. They're not watching you like that. But I am. That was the truth of it. She wasn't fighting the world. She was fighting the echo of herself, reflected in other people's indifference. I leaned back, resting my arms on the bench. Do you know how I see you? She didn't answer. Like someone who came back anyway, even when it hurt, even when it would have been easier to disappear. Her lip twitched. Not quite a smile, not quite sorrow. You make it sound brave. It is. We sat there until the sky started shifting. The kind of light that told you the day was willing to let go. She finally unwrapped a scone, broke it in half, and handed me a piece. I was afraid to come here, she said. Not just this town, but this part of my life. The part where I have to start over, without a script. You don't need one, I said. You're allowed to make it up as you go. She looked at me then, really looked, and something in her face eased. Not all the way, but enough to see it. I want to believe that, she said. You will, eventually. She nodded once. When she stood, she handed me the bag with the last scone. For you, she said, you keep showing up. I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time, she didn't look like she doubted it. She called it a party, but there was no music, just the clink of cutlery, the simmer of something on the stove, and two mismatched candles flickering on her kitchen table. When I walked in, she smiled like she was bracing herself to be embarrassed. It's a party for one, she said, shrugging. But you're here, so now it's for two. She had laid out 2 plates, simple pasta, a salad we both knew wouldn't get touched, and slices of bread that still smelled like the oven. It wasn't fancy. It didn't need to be. I sat down without comment. She poured water into glasses with both hands, hers and mine. A small gesture, but one that stayed with me. I used to cook all the time, she said, twirling her fork. He liked everything with heavy sauce, loud flavors. I don't even know what I like anymore. You'll figure it out, I said. Maybe. Tonight I just wanted to see if I could enjoy feeding someone without worrying if they'd finish the plate. I took a bite, warm, familiar, not trying too hard. It's good, I said. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it for you. She laughed quietly, almost surprised at herself. Her shoulders relaxed, and for a while, we just ate. Not in silence exactly, but in a kind of understanding that words weren't necessary unless we wanted them. She told me about her grandmother's kitchen, how the smell of rosemary always meant safety, how, as a child, she'd pretend to host dinner parties with empty teacups and imaginary guests. I think I forgot how to enjoy simple things, she said. For so long, I made everything look fine from the outside. Perfect plates, perfect smiles, perfect responses. You don't have to perform here. She looked at me then, long and slow, like she was testing the depth of something before stepping in. I know. When the meal ended, she didn't rush to clear the table. She leaned back in her chair, cradling her glass like it grounded her. This feels real, she said. It is. But it's also new. And I don't trust new easily. I'm not asking you to. She stood, walked to the small speaker on her shelf, and turned on something soft. Just a few notes, a piano barely above a whisper. She held out her hand. Dance with me. I stood, took her hand. No steps, no rhythm, just swaying. Bare feet on tile. The room dim and warm. She rested her head near my shoulder. I didn't move, didn't speak, just held the moment open for her to rest inside. When the music ended, she didn't pull away. She just whispered, "Thank you for showing up, even when I only expected silence. You never had to ask." She nodded, her eyes closed now, and I knew she believed it, or was starting to. Something shifted after that night, not in a dramatic way, no slammed doors, no sudden coldness, just a slowing, a quiet receding of presence, the kind you only notice when the silence stretches a bit too long, when the light in the window next door stays dark past dinner. I didn't chase it. I didn't knock. People pull away for reasons that don't always need fixing. Still, I noticed, the absence was soft but sharp. Her laughter didn't echo through my walls anymore. The scent of rosemary that used to waft over during her late-night cooking never came. Days passed, and with each one, I reminded myself not to fill the space with questions she hadn't asked me to answer. So I left her a note, short, folded neatly, and tucked under the stone by her doorstep. When you want silence with company, you know where I am. I didn't expect a reply, and none came. A week passed, then another. The distance didn't feel like punishment. It felt like fear, the kind that creeps in just when something starts to feel safe. Sometimes safety is louder than pain. It demands trust, and trust for some is the heaviest thing to carry. I let the quiet stretch, but I didn't forget her. I kept her tea stocked, the good kind. I left the porch light on longer than usual. Small gestures, not signals, just space kept open. One evening, near dusk, I saw her, across the street, standing by her mailbox, not checking it, just standing. Her arms crossed tight over her chest, her gaze fixed on nothing in particular. She didn't see me, or maybe she did and didn't want to. That was okay. The next morning, a book appeared on my porch. One of hers. I'd seen it on her shelf. Inside, a note in handwriting smaller than I remembered. I don't know what to say, but I haven't forgotten the way it felt. I just need to remember who I am when I'm not afraid of being seen. I read it twice, then left it where it was. The book, the note. Letting them sit in the open, as if saying, I'm here, no need to explain. Sometimes the most honest conversations are the ones we don't try to have, and in that stretch of unsaid things, I still felt her presence, not close, but not gone. It was the third night of rain in a row, the kind that blankets the house in a steady hush, soft enough to think in, loud enough to remember you're alone. I had just turned off the last light when I heard it. 3 slow knocks, not like the first time, not needing permission, just there. I opened the door and found her soaked. No umbrella, no bag, no words. She stepped inside without waiting, took off her shoes by the mat, and walked past me into the living room like it was hers to return to. Her clothes clung to her like the rain hadn't stopped outside of her skin. I grabbed the blanket from the couch and handed it to her. She didn't say thank you, just wrapped herself up and sat on the floor, knees pulled close. I sat beside her, not close enough to touch, close enough to stay. The room filled with the scent of wet air and something older, grief that hadn't left her bones yet. She didn't cry, but her silence was heavier than tears. We sat like that for a long time. Her fingers gripped the edge of the blanket, knuckles white with restraint. I didn't speak. I didn't ask. Finally, her voice came, not as a sentence, just a shape of breath. I didn't know where else to go. I nodded. You didn't have to know. Another pause. She looked straight ahead, eyes unfocused. I had a call from my mother today, she said. She said I've always been difficult to love, that maybe I expect too much from people who give me so little. I waited. She meant it, she added, like she needed me to understand it wasn't said in anger but in certainty. And I think I believed her. I turned to her then, just slightly. You're not too much. She didn't react, not right away. I don't need rescuing, she said, a little sharper now, as if she was preemptively defending herself. I know. I'm not broken. I know that too. She finally looked at me. Not for reassurance, for proof. Like she needed to see that I wasn't offering comfort as a currency. I'm just tired of pretending I'm okay when I'm not. Then don't pretend. Her lip trembled, but she pressed it tight. Like she'd rehearsed strength too long to let softness win now. Thank you for not asking why, she whispered. You don't owe me your reasons. I know, but I think I needed someone who wouldn't collect them like favors. Her shoulders relaxed, just enough. We stayed there on the floor, listening to the rain stitch itself across the windows. Nothing about the moment demanded anything from her. Not clarity, not answers, just presence. And that was enough. She returned the next morning, not with explanations or apologies, just 2 cups of coffee and a small bag of basil from her windowsill. She handed them to me like they were ordinary, like last night hadn't happened in a room full of unspoken things. I took them with a nod, and we stood there for a moment, the kind that asks nothing but attention. I was thinking of planting some herbs in the backyard, I said. She raised an eyebrow. That a metaphor? Only if you need it to be. She smiled then, soft and real. Can I help? We spent the late morning turning the soil. I had gloves. She didn't. Her hands dug in anyway, nails catching dirt, hair falling into her eyes. She asked questions about spacing and sunlight, about how often to water mint and what time looked like when it was thriving. She didn't know what she was doing, but she didn't pretend otherwise. That mattered more than I could say. At one point, she sat back on her heels, wiping sweat with her forearm. You always work this quietly? She asked. I talk when I have something to say. And if you don't, I listen. She looked at me then, head tilted like she was trying to hear something only I could give voice to. I used to fill silence with noise, she said, even in my own head. Music, lists, what-ifs, anything to drown out the feeling that I wasn't enough. You don't need noise to be enough. She didn't answer, but she didn't look away. We planted time in silence. Later, we sat on the porch. The coffee had gone cold, but neither of us moved to refill it. The basil lay between us, its scent stronger in the afternoon sun. She held her mug with both hands, staring into the distance like she could see something just past the edge of knowing. This place feels good, she said finally. Here, with you. I didn't respond, not because I didn't want to, but because I knew the moment didn't need more than that. She looked down, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. I didn't expect to feel safe again. Not this soon, not without explanation. Sometimes the explanation comes after the peace, I said. She exhaled, and the sound of it was like the last weight leaving her chest. I think I want to stay for dinner, she said. You're always welcome. She nodded. No thanks, no flinch. Just that. Acceptance. We didn't go back inside right away. We stayed in the light until it softened, until the herbs we planted leaned toward the quiet. I didn't ask her to define what was happening between us. Some choices don't need names, only presence. The morning after felt like continuation, not aftermath. She was already in the kitchen when I woke, barefoot, wrapped in my sweater, hair still wild from sleep. There was no music, no chatter, just the sound of water boiling and her quiet humming, the kind that only escapes when no one's guarding it. I stepped in without a word. She poured 2 cups, handed me one without looking. "You snore," she said, teasing but not mocking. "I know." I didn't mind. We sat at the table, our chairs angled just slightly toward one another. The light through the window caught the steam from her mug. Outside, the herbs we planted were starting to find their place in the soil. Small, unsure, but standing. "I used to dread mornings," she said. "They always meant pretending again, fixing my face before it cracked, telling myself, just make it to noon. And now, I didn't pretend today. We didn't finish the coffee. It didn't matter. The warmth had done what it came to do. Before she left, she didn't ask if she should. She just gathered her shoes and stood by the door with a softness I hadn't seen in her before. A stillness, not because she was afraid to move, but because she finally didn't have to run. I handed her a slip of paper, folded once. She frowned, amused. A note. A sentence. She didn't open it right away, just held it between her fingers like something sacred. Then she tucked it into her back pocket. "I'll read it when I need it," she said. She stepped out into the day, no storm, no hesitations. She didn't look back, but she returned that evening. No knock, no words. She walked in barefoot again with her hair wet from the shower and that folded paper now resting in her palm. She held it up to me. I read it. I waited. Her voice was quieter than the room. "You wrote, 'The silence here was never empty. Now it has you.'" I nodded. She crossed the room, slow and certain, sat beside me, not across, not near, beside. No words passed between us. None were needed. We sat like that until the light outside faded to blue, until the quiet between us became something neither of us feared. She didn't ask what this was, I didn't define it. But in that silence, something permanent began, not loudly, not suddenly, just enough to change everything.